like the ones before. Been going round in circles, I'm climbing up the wall. I'm losing my mind, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I wasted so much time, now it's time to make a move. I watched a dozen episodes of television news. Same old stories every day, but tell me nothing new. It's all in my mind, I talk about a different point of view. I wasted so much time, now it's time to make a move. Changes, nothing's fixed, the
91.9 WNTI Public Radio from Centenary College. We just heard from Leo Lyons' Kick, Living It Up, and that's from his solo release, Trouble Through Paradise. And Tough Trip Through Paradise. And Leo, of course, the longtime bass player for the group 10 Years After, who we heard from just before that. Their 2004 release called Now, we heard the song Changes, featuring Joe Gooch on vocals. And very excited to tell you that with us on the phone from his home in Nashville is Leo Lyons. Hi, Leo.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Oh, fine. Hey, great tunes there. That Leo Lyons Kick is quite a rocker.
Why, thank you.
The 10 Years After 40th anniversary tour has kicked off this year.
That's correct, yeah. We started... actually, the 40th anniversary starts in, I think, next week or something like that. So a fan wrote and told me, but we kind of started it in January. But officially, it starts, I think, at the beginning, towards the end of June.
Well, you know, you're going to be in a good place. It'll be at B.B. King's in New York City, July 11th, next Wednesday.
That's right. Is it that?
Yeah, and you played there to a sold-out crowd last year.
Yes, we did. That's right. That was fantastic.
Yeah, what a great room. And, this fellow, Joe Gooch, who you found to, it would seem almost impossible to replace a guy like...
I would agree with you.
Alvin Lee. A guy like Alvin Lee, in the group 10 Years After. And, people might be a bit skeptical, but I tell them they better listen before they jump to conclusions, because this guy, Joe Gooch, is terrific. Where did you find him?
You're absolutely correct, Greg. It was against all odds, and I wouldn't have bet on it myself. But I had a call about 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, to go out and work with a blues guitar player out of Arizona to do some dates in Italy. And it seemed like a great holiday for me, and we went out there with Rick and Chick from 10 Years After. And people were asking for 10 Years After songs, and people wanted, let's put 10 Years After back together. And Alvin really has retired. He doesn't like to work much anymore. And it was suggested that we find another guitar player, which I thought was impossible. But my son, actually, Tom, suggested Joe. And to cut a long story short, he sent a CD in. Rick called me up and played me the CD over the phone. Went down to check him out. I flew back to London. We got into we jammed in a rehearsal room, and it was great. I mean, I've known Joe for quite some time, although I hadn't seen him. He was a friend of my son Tom's, but I hadn't heard Joe play since he was a kid. So. Well,
the thing about Joe Gooch that I noticed is he doesn't try to sound like Alvin Lee yet.
No, he doesn't.
Yet, when and I should say also that it's all new material for the most part. It's all new stuff that's on this 10 Years After Now from a couple years back.
That's right.
But there is a couple bonus tracks on there. Some live ones are.
Yeah.
That show Joe doing some of the Alvin Lee material, and he nails it, man. It's great, but he's got the band with him, so.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, we put a couple of new tracks on it. The label we had in America at the time said, well, put a couple of hits on the European release so that people kind of get a flavour of it, and that's what we did. And we have since then released a double live CD, Roadworks, with new stuff and old stuff and tracks you haven't heard before. In actual fact, we've done a version of Kick's Living It Up on the Roadworks CD, and the copy is spooning its way towards you, Gregor.
Oh, well, that's great, because I had to record this a little bit before it airs, so, in the opening hour of the show, I will have played that, as we speak. The audience will have heard some of those tracks before.
That's great.
And, I can't tell you how excited I get when I interview somebody like you, Leo, just near and dear to my heart for so many years. And, I don't know what it must be like you, because you lived all this, and but me reading about it and remembering some things and then finding out things I really didn't know at the time. It's absolutely amazing. And I want to start off with this newsletter that you guys had. It was after a Tolkien. It was from a J.R. Tolkien book, I think. It was called Planeteer. I'm not pronouncing it.
Oh, yeah, Planeteer, yeah.
Yeah. And what it was, it's on the 10 Years After website. There's there's some great archival stuff on there. And one of the things was sort of like a journal. And it was you writing about your experience when you came over to America in 1968 at the behest of Billy Graham. I did not realize that Billy had invited you guys over.
Yes, that's right. Bill heard our first record and sent a telegram to our manager in London saying, if the guys come to America, I'll book them at the Fillmore West in San Francisco and the new venue I'm opening, Fillmore East in New York City. And on the basis of that, we came over to the States.
Yet another feather in Bill Graham's hat. Our special guest is Leo Lyons of 10 Years After, coming to town next week at B.B. King's in New York City. But Leo, more about this, your impressions about America when you came over. You were talking about how the feel of the States and the change of environment had instilled some enthusiasm and new ideas.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think when I was a kid and rock and roll hit the United Kingdom with Bill Haley and Chuck Berry and Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and things like that, and we started watching American programs on TV and the American cars and the diners and the whole thing. I mean, it was really an ambition to come to the States. And I guess in 1967, 68, people didn't just hop on a cheap flight and come to America. I mean, it was a big deal. And so it was an ambition of all of us in the band to come to America, and it was absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, one of these things that you wrote about was a place called, it was Steve
the Scene Club.
Steve Paul's Scene in New York City.
That's right.
And you write about jamming on stage with Jimi Hendrix, Mitch Mitchell, Larry Coryell, Janis Joplin, a flute player, who I think might have been Al Cooper, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, some of them, yeah. I think with Janis, I jammed with Janis at the Fillmore. I mean, we used to do two shows at the Fillmore East in New York City. We'd do two shows a night, change the audience around. And after that, when the audience had left, the bands would jam together.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's what happened. And
I mean, and we're talking about old legends. And one of the guys you talk about here, you said, and two other guitarists I didn't recognize. I don't know if you realize this now, but just by chance, I had heard a story. I was fortunate enough to be talking to Nils Lofgren, a guitarist who's actually made the big stage playing with Neil Young and Bruce Springsteen, but he's got a terrific solo career.
Right, yeah.
But he was just a young guy in Greenwich Village, and he was up on stage, and he was telling me about that experience, and he was talking about you playing the bass, and they says you guys were just hammering. He says, like, Hendrix was coming up, and Hendrix wanted to play your bass and stuff. It was wild, he said. That's
right, because Jimmy's left-handed, and of course he couldn't play the guitar, so Jimmy said, can I play your bass? So, I mean, the funny story is that when Jimmy first came to London, which would be, I don't know, the years go by, don't they, 66, 67, when Chas Chandler brought him over, I met Jimmy in, I think it was the Scotch of St. James, or the Cromwellian Club, one of those clubs. And he wasn't playing, we were at a Rory Gallagher record launch, I think, and Chas and Jimmy were talking to me, and they said, well, Jimmy's looking for a band. Are you interested in playing in the band? I hadn't heard Jimmy, and I turned it down. And some people say it's something he's regretted ever since, but I didn't. But
no, you did fine for yourself too.
That's
but
right. That's the first time I met Jimmy. Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that. That's amazing.
And then we played together. I mean, we played the same shows
Woodstock.
several times after. Woodstock and
Yeah.
lots of college gigs before that in the UK and in Europe. In fact, I think the Isle of Wight Festival was probably the last time, or maybe after that. I think Berlin. We played a show in Berlin together, maybe 5 or 6 days before he died.
Wow. You know, some of the younger listeners may not realize 10 years after and, how huge when they hit America, how big they became. They were on their way before that Woodstock appearance, but that catapulted them into...
Yes, it did. It opened up all the markets in between the markets, all the small towns with a college auditorium that held 5,000 or 10,000 people. We could play on a Tuesday night.
You did.
So, yeah, it was great. I mean, a lot of the times, Alvin's always quoted as saying, "Oh, it was the beginning of the end because there were too many people and blah 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 blah." But I mean, it was a wonderful experience so far as I was concerned.
Well, I can imagine. 28 U.S. tours from like mid '68 to '75 speaks volumes about the popularity of that band. And you weren't playing clubs. I mean, you were playing arenas and big festivals, and it was amazing. And the whole history of 10 years after. I mean, you've had a few reunions in the 80s, the 90s.
That's right. Yes, we did. Yeah.
And but I'm looking at your gig schedule for 2007, and the first date I got is like January 11th, and it's filling up that whole page, coming down, right through. Friday. You're off for a few days, it seems, but you're all over the place. You're back. You're in Germany. You're in Switzerland. You're in France. You're in the United States, Holland. You guys are still very busy, it seems.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I'm in Nashville right now. 2 days time, I go back to the UK. Then we play France, Switzerland, then back to BB King's, and I think we do Canada. I haven't got the date sheet in front of me. We do Canada, and then I think we go to California, and then back to Europe again, and on it goes. But I mean, it's fantastic because it's a whole new audience of people that come to see us. A lot of people from that have seen us before turn up, but it's mostly, depending on the territory, lots and lots of young people come along now.
Well, I can understand why. I mean, Joe brings a real, it's inspired playing, you guys are, that's really one of the best studio albums you've put out in quite a while is that one now. I haven't heard the Roadworks yet, but I'm assuming that's on par with that as well.
I think so. I think, some people prefer Roadworks because it's a live CD and it jams out a little more, and it seems to be that jamming's the thing again.
Well, it's funny
that's what we did.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because part of that story on that the journal from 1968 was you said no one seems to mind if the shows run overtime. We did a gig at the Fillmore San Francisco with Peter Green and Paul Butterfield. We all ran over our allotted times, and the show was scheduled to finish at 2 a.m., but Paul Butterfield was raving away at 4:45 in the morning still. You said?
Possibly so. I guess Bill Graham must have been in a good mood because Bill was a stickler for timing, but he was the first person that I'd worked with. He seemed to appreciate musicians. He seemed to understand what it was all about, and he really wanted to introduce a variety of music to the American public, and I think that was great. I think he brought blues, he brought a lot of the Black American artists that really were underrated and well discounted, I think, by mainstream the American public.
Yeah,
he brought jazz, he brought gospel, and all as middle class white kids.
Well, You're speaking my language. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be growing up in the New York City area at that time, so saw a lot of shows, from like 70 on at the Fillmore East,
Yeah.
including you guys. And that was one of the trademarks of Bill Graham was, I saw Bills with 10 Years After playing with Sun Ra,
Yeah, that's right. All the staple singers, or
Yes. Humble Pie.
well, yeah, so many different artists. Ike Tina Turner. I think we played with B.B. King, Buddy Guy.
Wow. Our special guest, Leo Lyons of 10 Years After, longtime bass player and working hard these days, touring all over the world, being in New York City next week at B.B. King's Blues Club Wednesday, July 11th. And the good news also is, in between all these gigs, you guys are squeezing out another studio album due out at the beginning of next year.
That's right, yeah, and we're recording a DVD. Most of our fans are asking for DVDs.
Yeah.
When's the DVD? And we're scheduling that in September in Luxembourg. Maybe people from New York, it's a little too far, but we're trying to invite all our fans to come to Luxembourg and be part of the recording of the DVD.
Very cool. You're in Nashville. You still have a home in London as well, right?
Yeah, kind of. But I've lived in Nashville now for 9 years.
Have you ever lived in the New York area?
Yes, I have. I was in New York. I think I played on Savoy Brown's record.
Yes, I know.
And I played on Leslie West's record up in New York City.
The Blues Keep Me Holding On. And, I have to ask you this. I'm very curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Simmons' wife's name is Debbie Lyons. Is that any relation to you?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
But the same name. Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's funny you should mention Savoy Brown. This is kind of one of those strange coincidences. I actually met you, but I didn't meet you at the World Trade Center in New York City.
Oh, yes. A week before the whole thing collapsed.
Yes, I was standing with a friend of mine named Bob Evans, who knows you. And,
Okay.
And you came over and tapped him on the shoulder.
Right.
In between, actually, we were walking in the back with the band.
Right. Okay.
And you said, "Hi, Bob." And you chatted for a second, walked away. I didn't think anything of it. And he says, "You know who that was?" I said, "No." He says, "That's Leo Lyons." I said, "Now you tell me."
Okay. I know. Synchronicity is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but you played on that. You also played on a great tribute to John Lee Hooker.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, with Vince Converse and your bandmate Rick Lee.
That's right. Yeah, we started to. I started to record a project with Vince, and I wrote a lot of material for him. The record hasn't come out because I think the record company didn't cease to exist. But I've had a few calls lately about Vince, and they asked me if I might be interested in doing something. I think they want to use some of my songs anyway, so that may well be happening too.
Well, that's one of my favorite cuts on that album, Bad Like Jesse James.
It's weird. It's a funny... I tried to capture the way that the original record was done because the beauty of John Lee Hooker was his timing.
Yeah.
It's never strictly in time. It's just a feel, and we tried to capture the feel. Rather than trying to do something kind of 2007 or 2006 with it, we tried to just capture the way he played it. And I haven't listened to it since, but I hope it kind of worked out.
Our special guest, Leo Lyons, bass player of 10 Years After, here tonight on 91.9 WNTI, the Rocket Science Show with me, Greg. And, Leo, you are always pointed out, people... they talk about Alvin Lee, of course, the front man of 10 Years After for so many years and everything. But everybody mentions that fluid bass line that you just hammer home there with all those songs from way back. And, my favorite are your blues interpretations. Sonny Boy Williamson, the way you did Help Me. And, just great stuff. Are you guys covering as much blues these days as you did in the early years?
In our live set, we I mean, the problem is our sets gets longer and longer, but we try to do all the songs that people want to hear,
That's
plus
hard.
the new songs from our new records, plus songs that we're trying to fit into the recordings that we haven't done yet. So I think you could say that people will hear the hits.
Yeah.
And I hope, I say that doesn't sound right. I think we've captured the fire that we had in 1967 or 68. I mean, everyone's enjoying playing, and it's absolutely brilliant. We're not going through the motions.
Oh, well, hell no. Yeah, and that's like the thing that just jumps out, right away is that this is certainly not an oldies act by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
this is very fresh, energetic, just some great blues rock that you guys are pumping out there.
Well, it's kind of you to say. No amount of money would entice me to spend half my life at airports unless I actually enjoyed the time on stage. I live for the time that I play on stage, and that's when I come to life. The rest of it, I could well do without.
Yeah, well, you certainly paid your dues. One of the things I was reading about, going way back, where you were with Alvin Lee in a group called the Jaybirds.
That's right, yeah.
And you did some time at that Star Club about the same time the Beatles were doing over there in Hamburg, Germany. Is that right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. It was. I'm just trying to think when it would be. 61, 62. It was before the Beatles actually made it, but they were making waves in Hamburg.
And what kind of music were you guys playing? R&B or
rock and roll?
Rock and roll, yeah.
Not very. A lot of obscure covers, like Barrett Strong, Money, a lot of Ronnie Hawkins. That kind of that kind of thing.
Well, you were right, like there with all the blues boom that was going on in the early '60s over there. With Mayall and Savoy Brown. You actually played with those guys early on, didn't you?
Yes, yes, we did. Yeah.
Did you play at that blues club that they had? I'm trying to remember the name of it. That Kim and his brother had rented out upstairs, a small little place.
Mike Vernon.
Yes.
You mean Mike Vernon's club, Blue Horizon?
Oh, well, yeah.
Is that the one you mean?
Well, no, but that you mentioned Mike Vernon, he did all your early albums, and
yes, he did the first two, I think, or three. I'm not sure. And he of course had the Blue Horizon label which Mike produced.
Mayall,
Fleetwood Mac, Mayall,
yeah,
Mayall with Clapton, in fact.
Wow, and a lot of people don't even realize that part of your history because it was a little later that you came over. Like that first album that you released in '67 actually wasn't released over here until later, and
that's right.
And it's a great blues album.
That's right. I think I don't know when it was released, but I think the first impact that we had was when we came over to tour on the invitation from Bill Graham, which we talked about earlier, and we needed a new record for it, and that's when we recorded the Undead live recording from Cluck's Cleek in West Hampstead.
Best name of a live album ever, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And a great album too.
And I think that was our first
chart. Yeah,
our first chart album in the States.
Well, recently you released a 1970 concert from the Fillmore East, which
that's right. Yeah, the
outstanding.
Hidden tapes.
Outstanding. Thank God whoever was hiding those that they found them.
Well, I think I have to give Rick a little bit of credit. Rick, the drummer from 10 Years After, the credit for that, because Decca, I think, found those tapes in the archives, and I think Rick was badgering them to release it, which they did. And I think it was pretty good. I think it was a pretty good representation for the people that were there and for the people that weren't there. It does capture some of that magic of the Fillmore East.
Absolutely. I read a funny story about, we're talking about all the eclectic bands that you shared bills with. You one time shared a bill with Buddy Rich,
That's right.
The drummers.
I think we did about 5 days with Buddy. Buddy Rich supported us. I mean, it's quite crazy, isn't it?
And a big part of the 10 Years After shows back then were these great long solos on drums by Rick Lee.
Yeah.
And when Buddy Rich played, it said, in deference to Buddy, we did not do any drum solos.
Yeah, well, that's from Bill's book, yeah. Rick said, no, that's not true, I did it.
Okay.
Knowing Rick, he probably would anyway.
It makes for a good story anyway.
It does. But Buddy was great. What a great player.
My.
I mean, he could pick a band up and move it along. I mean, I don't know. I've heard lots of stories about Buddy being difficult to work with, but I mean, I remember standing behind him at the Fillmore West in San Francisco and listening to him play and thinking, wow, this drummer is fantastic. I said to Buddy, hey, Buddy, any chance that I could get up and play with? And he said, oh, I don't know, we'll see, but I never did.
Well,
he probably thought, who's this punk? Who's this kid?
Who knew, right? Well, Leo, I could hold you hostage for hours talking to you. It's just a fascinating road you've traveled and are still traveling. And congratulations with all these new projects. And, we all look forward to seeing you when you come to town here at B.B. King's in New York City. And you're returning a few days. Well, you're going back to Europe, and then you're coming back a little later. You'll be playing
backwards and forwards. Yeah, I think I've been to Europe about 3 times this month.
You'll be playing in Maryland at the Rams Head Inn and over on Long Island at the Huntington IMAX Center as well in the coming weeks.
That's right, in between going to Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you get those frequent flyer miles.
That's right. It doesn't make the delays in the airports any better. I think the thing to do is to go and wear swimming shorts and sandals these days.
Well, I had 2 quick questions for you before I let you go. And one was about the name 10 Years After. I had read you got that off a radio list or something. Where did you derive that name from?
We were looking for a name. I mean, for a period of time, we called ourselves the Blues Yard, and our manager said, no, that's going to tie you to music. Think of a name. And I was looking through a newspaper, the Radio Times, in actual fact, it's a English newspaper that tells you what's on the radio on the BBC.
Uh-huh.
And there was an advertisement, and I can state this categorically because a fan sent me a copy of the newspaper about 12 months ago, so I actually have the copy. And there was an advertisement in there for a book, and it was called Suez, 10 Years After. It was about the Suez Canal.
Oh.
And I thought, 10 years after, that's a pretty good name. And we started to think about it, and I thought, well, the number 10 is quite a magical number in the tarot and numerology, and number 10 is about 10 years since, rock and roll and so on and so forth. And I put it forward as a band name, and everyone liked it, and we became 10 Years After. And people asked, what's that mean? What's it mean? And we made up all sorts of things for it. And even I forgot. I thought, 10 years after, I think it was a name of a radio program, and I've said that in interviews. Oh, it was a radio program, I think, but it was an advertisement for a book.
Oh, that's funny.
And if you go on, there's a fan site, I think it's called 10-years-after.com. You'll see a photograph of the Radio Times.
And your website is leolyons.org.
Yes, it is.
Or you have a couple of very cool MySpace sites, Leo Lyons, MySpace/Leo Lyons, and MySpace/Leo Lyons Kick. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. And, of course, we have our 10 Years After site, which is called 10yearsafternow.com.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, you should check that one out.
Well, I will. I wanted to ask you one more question about this. 10 Years After Now. Now, the bonus tracks that were added to the 2004 release now are 2 live tracks, and one of them is I'd Love to Change the World, which is, I was surprised to read, was your biggest hit ever. I always thought I'm Going Home was the signature tune, and it may be, but I'd Love to Change the World.
I think the thing was that I'd Love to Change the World was released as a single, whereas I'm Going Home was just a big hit.
There you go.
But, the interesting thing about that is that when I'd Love to Change the World was a hit, I think about 1972, Alvin refused to play it live, and we never played it live until 4 years ago.
That's very interesting. That was exactly what I was going to ask you. It's a nice touch putting that live on the bonus tracks of the now 10 Years After Now release.
Well, that was the idea. I mean, I think it's probably the best song that Alvin's ever written.
Well, that's saying a lot, but I could not argue with you. It's a terrific song. And, Joe Gooch, as I said before, just nails it. I'm not saying he sounds like Alvin Lee, but he doesn't have to because
No,
he sounds he sounds great.
He doesn't, I mean, music's all about enjoying it, and I can say one thing right now is that we're all enjoying what we're doing, and I mean, it's great. I mean, I feel very fortunate that, and not only did I think I'd be dead by now, but I didn't think I'd be still out there playing live.
Well, I feel very fortunate that you were nice enough to take out the time and talk to us here in North Jersey and let us know what's going on. I know you're a modest guy, and you're probably embarrassed about me saying something like this, but you truly are a legend, and you've had quite an amazing journey that continues on. Next Wednesday at B.B. King's in New York City, July 11th, 10 years after the Now edition, featuring Joe Gooch on vocals and guitar. And thank you so much, Leo Lyons, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Greg, and I hope you'll come and see us, and I hope a lot of your listeners will.
Oh, well, I'll make it a point to. All the best to you, Leo.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, Leo Lyons, and let's hear I'd Love to Change the World, the new edition of 10 Years After. 91.9 WNTI, public radio from Centenary College.
Tell me where is sanity? don't know what to do. So I leave it up to you.
.919 WNTI Public Radio from Centenary College. We just heard Sugar the Road off of the Cricklewood Green CD, LP, excuse me, back in the early 70s from 10 Years After. And we thank the bass player Leo for taking time to speak to us tonight from his home in Nashville. And as I mentioned, Leo is playing with the new version of 10 Years After at B.B. King's Blues Club in New York City, July 11th. next Wednesday. Well, my name's Greg. The show's been Rocket Science. Thanks for stopping by. We heard the new version of 10 years after doing their big hit, I'd Love to Change the World. As I mentioned, Joe Gooch handling the vocals and guitars on that live version of their classic. And that comes as bonus tracks from their now release back in 2004. Well, let's hear a track that Leo Lyons did along with his bandmate Rick Lee, a fellow named Vince Converse, for a John Lee Hooker tribute called From Clarksdale to Heaven. Check out their version of Bad Like Jesse James. Once again, thanks for tuning in tonight, and congratulations to the winners of all the tickets to see shows at BB King's earlier in the show. And I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
I had a friend one time, at least I thought I did. And he came up to me, said, Johnny boy. I said, what, man? He said, I'm out of dough. But see, I'd taken the cat in, give him a place to stay. And then I gone and found out we were going all around town, telling everybody he got my wife. I go up to the cat like a good man should, and I said, hey man. He said, what man? I said, I'ma warn you one time, and the next time I warn you, I'm gonna have to use my gun. Cause I'm mad, and I'm so bad, like Jesse James. Yes, I'm mad, baby, and I'm so bad, I'm gonna ruin you this morning. See, I got some boys here, do my dirty work for me. You don't see me now. I say you don't see me under no big ball. I do the payoff after they make you lost in their own way. They may shoot you, or they may cut you, yeah. They may drown you. I just don't know. I don't even care, no. As long as they're taking care of you, boy, in their own way. Cause I'm mad, and I'm so bad, just like Jesse James. Yeah, they're gonna take you down to the river, boy. Going down, ain't but three coming back alive. You better read between the lines. What's gonna happen to you 'cause I'm mad, and I'm so bad, like Jesse James. They gon' tie your hands, gon' tie your feet, gon' gag your throat so you can't holler for help, you see. Crying won't help you none. Drown you in the water, boy. I hear the bubbles coming up. Coming back. Four is going down there, three coming back to life. I'm mad, yeah. I'm so bad, like Jesse James. Just like Jesse James. Hit the boat. Drown you in the water, boy, just like Jesse James.